Today I'm going to show you 10 useful things I've made on my 3D printer. Some of the things I've been using for years and some only for days. Most of the things you'll see are made from PLA, but one of the most useful is made from TPU, that squishy, indestructible stuff. The first is this foot for a TV that my mum gave me. She had lost the original legs that came with the TV, and she gave me the wall mount that it came with, but it was very old and had lots of play, and when I mounted it on the wall, the TV was like very tilted to one side. It just sucked. I made these feet and I even added a fuzzy skin texture. I think they look great. They're very stable. This was harder to make than it looks. The notch where the TV leg goes into is actually tapered, and I didn't realize that at first. And it was very hard to measure the taper. So I just printed lots of little versions, just chopped off this top piece. By trial and error, I found the right fitting, and then I printed the rest of the leg. Next up is the coat rack I made a few months ago when I moved into this flat. You know, when you move in, you have so much to buy. My girlfriend was like, we really need a coat rack. Like, the coat situation is out of control. So I grabbed a piece of wood and I quickly designed this hook that would screw right onto it. It didn't take more than an hour to print, I think 6 or 7 of them. And it's held up for months of abuse now. It's made in matte PLA, which is not the best PLA, I found out. And one of them has started to crack, you can see, but the others are fine. And I'll just reprint that one. And it's one screw that holds it in down. So yeah, we use this every day, bags, coats, all kinds of shit. The next two are for the kitchen, and I'll talk about them together. The first is this utensil rail, tool rail, where I hang, graters and spatulas, that kind of stuff. The part which is 3D printed is the bit on the end which holds the dowel, but also the hooks. It's way cheaper to print them than to buy them. And also I didn't have to wait for them to come in the post. Most of these things come from wanting it immediately and not wanting to wait for it to come in the post. So I just look around the house and I scrap something together. The second is I have my pots and pans on an IKEA Skadis pegboard inspired by Julia Child. Most of the hooks I have on it are 3D printed, and I've hung things like cast iron pans which are really heavy and they've not broken, so these have both been very helpful. Next up are these mudguards I made for my electric skateboard. I ride this thing every day, and when you ride it on a wet road, your legs get soaked and covered in dirt from the road. So I designed these mudguards made from TPU that bend and are squishy. And in this situation, there's no better material because they need to absorb these huge shocks from crashing into things. And since I've installed them, my legs now stay completely dry, and I've got another skateboard without them. And you can see how much more crap collects under the skateboard. These are probably my most useful print I can think of to date, just because of how drastic the changes with and without them. Next up is this lamp, which is probably the oldest print of all the ones I'm showing you today. The original idea behind this lamp was that it would go next to your bed and you'd keep a book in this groove. As a bit of a bedtime routine, you'd read your book and it would wind you down and you go to bed. I never ended up using it for that, and this one just sits in my kitchen as a light in the corner. I like it a lot, but it's, the original idea was a bit romantic, but it's a useful lamp. I still have it, so it's on the list. I use it every day. Next up is another light, the one above my head here and up there. These are ceiling lights. The bracket they come with, you can only mount them flush against the surface. I wanted to use them both here and here, but this is a rented flat. I can't drill a new hole into the ceiling. I didn't want to drill a hole through this desk. So I 3D printed essentially a spacer that let me wire the mains cable underneath it and mount it just a few millimeters off the surface. This is bit more clearly shown with one of my earlier brackets I made for this. There are these channels running through the mount that accept a cable and you can clearly see how I can screw this against the wall or ceiling and get a cable underneath it. The next one is this vertical AMS Lite stand I made for my 3D printer. The problem I had was that my 3D printer's up on the shelf, and the original one puts the back spools so far back that they're hard to reach or even probably see if it's fully loaded with filament. So I made this one that tips the AMS right up, dead straight, and then you can reach all 4 spools and see them from the front a bit more easier. It's not going to be useful for everyone. For my situation, it saved me a lot of grief.